Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zack, and for the last week I've been driving the 2025 Audi Q5 TFSI Quattro. Up front is a 2.0 liter turbocharged inline-4, and down below is a 7-speed automatic transmission. Now I am super excited to be making this video because here on the channel, in the last half a year about, we have reviewed not only the SQ5, the more performance-oriented version of this vehicle, but also the Volkswagen Tiguan, which is a lower version of this vehicle. They share a lot of underpinnings, maybe not directly the same, but in that sort of same zone. And so today, we're going to be taking a look at really all three of these vehicles and figuring out which one might be the best choice for you, as well as why it might be worth it to jump up to the Audi brand over just the standard Volkswagen brand. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that 2-liter turbo under the hood. That is the most common, the most used engine by Volkswagen that has pretty much ever existed ever. They throw it into everything. Porsches use it, Audis use it, Volkswagen uses it. And so, fortunately, it's actually a pretty good thing that it's not a very new engine. It's very well thought out. It's going to be pretty reliable because there's just so many of them. This is one of the engines truly powering the world right now, and you have it here in the Q5. Like I said, paired to it is a 7-speed automatic transmission. It's fine. It does the job. It's pretty smooth, and I haven't noticed any weird hiccups or anything like that, which is always good to hear. And last but not least, this does have Audi's Quattro system, meaning it is all-wheel drive. How does it feel to drive the Q5? Well, it's really unremarkable. Now, this isn't a bad thing. People always assume when I say a driving experience is forgettable and unsurprising or unexciting that automatically means it's bad. This is a car meant for people that aren't really into cars. They don't need that adrenaline jolt just to go to their job. They want something more premium. They want something nicer than the standard stuff. And so that's what Audi offers you. Is this going to wow your socks off if you take it to the drag strip? No, of course not. But it does have that elevated feeling. The ride is a little bit nicer than the Tiguan. The inputs are a little bit smoother than the Tiguan. And so that's where you're gonna start to see your dollars being spent, is in parts and feelings like that. This is a slightly elevated experience over some of the other Volkswagen products. Blind spots are whatever, you know, most SUVs are gonna have some type of issue or something to say about blind spots, and the Q5 is no different. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a completely digital gauge cluster. Now, this is across pretty much all of Audi's lineup now, and I really like it. I think it's easily customizable, a lot of good information, and Audi was somewhat of a pioneer with this stuff all the way back in the early 2010s with their digital cockpit found in like the Audi TT. So nice to see it carrying on here and that they've been refining it over the years. On the steering wheel on the left, we do have our view and selector buttons for that gauge cluster screen. And off to the right, we have our heated steering wheel button, skip track, volume, and phone options. Now, the steering wheel is nice and thin. Really enjoy the feeling of it. And off to the left, we do have a climate control vent and some wood accenting, but that's it, keeping it really nice and simple off to the left. Moving on to the door, we do have our Bang & Olufsen speaker. We have our latch to get in and out, and then we have our power locks, power mirrors, as well as our headlight settings. If you've seen any of my other Audi reviews, you'll know that recent Audis have been moving the headlights over here, and then of course power windows down at the bottom. Moving into the center, we have a continuation of that gauge cluster screen. This is our giant infotainment. So this does have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, some ambient light settings, and things like that. But overall, nothing too crazy here. It's nice, it's bright, it has a great refresh rate, and the backup camera is good. You know, this is sort of a mid-range vehicle, not meant to impress the Kennedys, and so it works well enough. Now, the climate controls are ran through the screen, and as I've mentioned in other Audi products, it's not a huge issue here because it is pretty responsive, even on a cold morning, filming it here in the winter of Chicago. I never ran into any issues where like a button didn't work or I had to touch it 3 times, nothing like that. It has worked out well enough, and I can't complain. It's just the way the world is moving. However, we have a third screen in the vehicle, and this is for the passengers. So they have a couple of different apps and things that they could go through in here. This was really nice on a road trip that we took. Keeping my girlfriend occupied for 4 hours has never been easier than here in the Q5. Moving back into the center, we have our 2 climate control vents. We have our start-stop button as well as our drive mode select. For balanced dynamic comfort and off-road, we have automatic start-stop on and off. We have our hazard switch. We have our traction control off as well as our volume and skip track button. Then we have 2 USB-Cs, a 12-volt outlet, and our shifter here in the center. So up above this shifter, we do have our safety buttons on and off. We have our parking sensors and parking cameras. We have a button just for park, and then we have the shifter. The shifter is tiny and out of the way. I have actually really grown to like these in the last several vehicles that I've tested. So nice to see that here. I feel like it actually opens up the cabin a little bit more. And then off to the right, we do have cup holders. We'll do a big friggin' bottle test. The SQ5 failed, the Q5 fails, so it's an entire family of Audis that do not pass the big friggin' bottle test. Then we do have a center console and the seats. The seats are heated, ventilated, power, memory. They are pretty comfortable. I've spent a lot of time behind the wheel. My back never hurt. And so I consider that a pretty big win here for the Audi Q5. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats. So let's go do a back seat review. All right, getting in the back of the Q5. As you can see, the tan carries on back here. Love to see that. And once we are inside, my knees are hitting the seat in front of me, which is a little bit of a downside. The Q5 is not their biggest SUV. Of course, they do have the Q7 up above. It's going to be a 3-row, a little bit more comfy. Headroom is pretty good. 5'11", not a small guy. I'm not hitting the ceiling. We get this nice sunroof, moonroof type situation to deal with as well, which is very nice. And we have Bang & Olufsen speakers here. We have lock and unlock. We do have pull shades that we could pull up as well. We get 2 USB-Cs, we get climate controls, and we get rear heated seats with our own temperature control. So very, very nice to see these features back here as well. Come into the center here, pull this down. We do get a center console with 2 cup holders. So decently well equipped back seat, not super spacious. The driver could be nice and move up a little bit, but this is very comparable in size to the Tiguan, of course, but also like the Mazda CX-5, which doesn't have fantastic back seat space, the RAV4, vehicles of this size and caliber. So it's pretty standard across the board. You're going to be able to fit people back here without much problem, but they're not going to be swimming laps, if that makes any sense. Let's hop into the very back. We'll take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, coming around the back, I apologize for how dirty this car is. It is the winter here in Chicagoland, and I washed it this morning, and just driving it to the filming location has already dirtied it back up. But we do have a handle in here, or there is a little kick sensor down here. You could kick your foot under and it will open as well. Once we are back here, tons and tons of space. Love to see that. You could also raise and lower the vehicle with that switch right there. Love to see that. We get a 12-volt outlet, also a fantastic feature I always look for, some netting, and we can come down here, pull this up, and we do get a lot of extra storage underneath the floor of the Q5. So tons and tons of storage options. I feel like they could have moved the second row back a little bit to give you better second row space and compromise just a touch of the cargo space, but very, very nice to see. We do come up here. We have the tailgate button and the lock button. We'll just hit the tailgate button for now. Nice, smooth, and quick for the back of the Audi Q5. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I really like the look of the Q5. The only thing I'm not completely sold on is the wheels. My buddy said that the wheels kind of look like an e-tron wheels. They look like they're like smooth aero wheels, and I get that for EVs. This obviously isn't an EV. I would have liked a little bit more intricate wheel design. I think especially the SQ5 does have a very, very nice wheel design. I loved those wheels. So looking at these, they are pretty bland, pretty boring, and I just would have liked to seen something a little bit more fun. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving the Q5 for the last week? Well, I've really enjoyed my time with the Q5. I think the Q5 is a very good product. For the 2025 model year, they've completely redesigned it. And the Q5 was in need of redesign, and I think they nailed it. They really brought this product, one of their best-selling products, into the modern era. I think it has great tech features. It feels fresh. It feels cutting edge, where the outgoing model definitely did not. So this is a huge upgrade, and anyone looking for a Q5, I would give them the green light. I'm very satisfied with this. However, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I've also driven the SQ5 and the Volkswagen Tiguan. The Tiguan was in the 50s. This is in the 60s, and the SQ5 was in the 70s. So we have about a $20,000 gap between the vehicles. If it were my money, I would probably go with the Tiguan. I would probably save the $10,000 just because the new Tiguan is so fantastic. I don't feel like you miss out on much by not going up to the Q5. You do miss out on the passenger screen for sure. But in terms of drivability, in terms of performance, in terms of feeling fresh, because the Tiguan was also recently redone, I would probably pick that. However, I do want to mention a point that a lot of people breeze over when jumping up to an Audi brand or any luxury brand from a mainstream manufacturer, whether that be a jump from Toyota to Lexus, Honda to Acura, Nissan to Infiniti. When you buy the nicer product, even if you're buying a cheaper version of the nicer brand, the dealership experience is different, because if you go and buy that Volkswagen Tiguan, you're going to go get it serviced at the Volkswagen dealer. You're going to be surrounded by dudes in polo shirts, a little coffee stand in the corner, probably a Jetta on the showroom floor, and that's pretty much it. That's going to be your experience. Now, it's going to be a lot more approachable of an experience. It's going to be a lot more casual of an experience. When you do make this jump up to Audi and you get those 4 beautiful metallic rings at the front and back of your vehicle, the dealership experience will change. Now, when you're sitting in the waiting room, you're going to see RS6s, RS3s. If it were a few years earlier, you would have seen an Audi R8 V10 sitting on the floor. You're going to see the SQ8. You're going to see vehicles of higher stature and with big price tags. Even though maybe you paid $62 for your Audi Q5, you're going to be staring at cars worth almost $200,000. The people running around that dealership are probably going to be in suits and ties. It's going to be a much higher end experience. Some Audi dealers I've been in have had cappuccino machines and espresso machines. They've had full snack pantries for their waiting customers. That's something that people don't really think about. And so maybe I personally, because I'm a rather frugal person, I would probably go with that Volkswagen Tiguan. But there is something to be said about making that jump. If you've ever flown first class, and I've been fortunate enough to have flown several times in first class, you get treated nicer. You get treated as a better person. You get nicer snacks. You get actual glassware. You can twiddle your toes without kicking the person in front of you. And so that comes at a premium price. And I don't fly first class all the time. If I have an upgrade available, I'll do it. It's expensive for sure, 100%. But you get a nicer experience. That's what this car is. Yes, there is a little bit of a price jump for a relatively similar product to the Tiguan, but it is going to be, at the end of the day, a nicer, more luxurious experience. It is going to have that elevated experience. And now you have to make that decision if it's worth it to you. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Audi for letting me borrow their vehicle for the last week. Huge thank you to Drive Shop for facilitating the cleaning and delivery of this product. And of course, the Midwest Automotive Media Association. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.